often the only exciting part of boring history lessons. But beyond the art, glory, and bravery lies a chapter we often skip: its fall. A single crack in the flow can destroy what took centuries to build. So, what really happened during the fall of Rome? Today you'll find out and realize it hits closer to home than you'd think. Chapter 1. The day the empire died. It's the year 476 AD. A teenage boy named Romulus Augustulus sits on a throne that's lost nearly all its meaning. He's Rome's last Western emperor, and even he knows the glory days are over. When the Germanic warlord Odovacar storms in and demands his abdication, Romulus doesn't even resist. Instead, Odovacar sends the imperial crown and purple robes to Constantinople, Rome's eastern counterpart, as if to say, "You can keep this. It's useless now." But the fall of Rome didn't happen in a single day. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but a long, painful disintegration. And at the heart of it all was one massive problem. Rome had simply grown too big to control. Chapter 2. Too big to handle. At its peak, the Roman Empire stretched across Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East. From the chilly hills of Britain to the scorching sands of Egypt, Rome ruled it all. Sounds impressive, right? But the problem is that it was too much. Managing such a vast empire with slow communication, old technology, and constant threats was nearly impossible. Rome became too large to govern efficiently. Armies were stretched thin trying to defend faraway borders. Local leaders, once loyal to Rome, started acting like mini-emperors, ignoring commands and chasing their own power. The system was cracking from within. Corruption spread like wildfire, and decisions that once took days now dragged on for months. An empire running on overdrive with half its engine gone was never going to last forever. And then there were the legions, those once unstoppable war machines that conquered lands and crushed enemies. But over time, they grew lazy, spoiled by comfort, and poisoned by politics. They no longer fought with the same fire. Rome even began hiring foreign soldiers, men who had no real loyalty to the empire. They were paid to fight, not to care. And when your strongest defense is built on people who don't believe in your cause, it's only a matter of time before everything comes crashing down. Chapter 3. The Rise of the Church and the Fall of Knowledge. With the empire in ruins, another force quietly rose to fill the vacuum: the Christian Church. While political institutions collapsed, the Church endured. Bishops became the new administrators, monasteries the new schools, and scriptures the new books. Literacy, once the hallmark of Roman elite culture, was confined mostly to monasteries. But while the Church preserved some knowledge, it let a lot slip away. Classical literature, philosophy, and science, much of it was lost, burned, or forgotten. Education no longer served the empire's administrative machine. There was no need for Latin grammar or Greek philosophy when the world outside was burning. And so, Rome's intellectual achievements were buried under rubble and replaced by religious doctrine. Chapter 4. Not just a fall, a transformation. Some historians argue that Rome didn't fall, it evolved. The Western Empire slowly transformed into a collection of Christian kingdoms with new identities and rulers. And while this is partially true, it misses the human side of the story. For the vast majority of people, this transformation wasn't gentle. It was violent, confusing, and often deadly. Imagine being a Roman citizen living in southern Gaul. One day, you're protected by Roman law. The next, a foreign king demands tribute and military service. You don't understand his language, his laws, or his gods. Your children grow up never learning to read. The statues, libraries, and bathhouses around you become haunted relics. To call that a transformation is to ignore the suffering, the fear, and the sheer loss that came with it. Chapter 5. The two Romes split, and the hope in the East. While the West crumbled, the East held on. The Byzantine Empire, with its glittering capital in Constantinople, was a beacon of wealth, power, and culture. Justinian I, ruling a few decades after Rome's fall in the West, attempted to reunite the empire. His armies reconquered parts of Italy and North Africa. He commissioned the Hagia Sophia, a marvel of engineering and faith, and he codified Roman laws into a unified system known as the Corpus Juris Civilis. But even Justinian couldn't stop the tide of change. His gains were short-lived, and the Eastern Empire would eventually shrink and harden into a defensive state. Still, compared to the anarchy of the West, Byzantium seemed like a miracle. It preserved much of what the West had lost: books, bureaucracy, and even a shadow of Roman imperial pride. Chapter 6. The Death of Roman Culture. Perhaps the most tragic part of Rome's fall wasn't the loss of power, but the loss of identity. Rome had always been more than a government. It was a culture built on civic pride, public service, philosophy, and the rule of law. All of that crumbled when the empire did. Young men no longer dreamed of becoming senators or scholars. They dreamed of becoming soldiers or monks. Public life disappeared, replaced by local loyalty and tribalism. Roman roads no longer led to glory, but to ruins. In many ways, the lights of a once civilized world went dark, and it would take centuries for them to flicker back on. But if we zoom out and look at the entire story, we see something much deeper. Chapter 7. What really happened? Rome didn't fall because of one terrible leader or a single attack. It crumbled slowly, worn down by too much land, civil wars, money problems, and deep cultural shifts. Foreign armies filled its ranks, and corruption rotted it from within. But the biggest reason was that Rome lost the very things that once made it strong: its unity, its sense of care, and the shared purpose that held everyone together. When a society loses those, even the strongest empire can quietly fade into history. But do you think no one saw this coming? Yes, no one saw this. Because on the surface, everything looked good. Is a growing empire really a problem? Are welcoming new cultures into your world truly dangerous? These changes seemed positive, even exciting. But the surface fooled the fate. While Rome looked strong, its roots were already rotting. And just like that, its powerful days slipped away. It can happen to anyone, any nation, any system unless we learn to look deeper than the surface shine.